In the United States, over 500,000 people go missing each year, with many of those cases receiving national attention. But none could be more disturbing than that of the Springfield Three, a mother and two daughters who seemingly vanished into thin air. One summer night in 1992, three women, the mother and two young girls, disappeared from their home, leaving behind a tidy room, wallet, phone, everything still there, yet they were never seen again. So what really happened to the Springfield Three? And why has this case haunted America for decades? First up, let's take a look at the case summary. On the night of June 6, 1992, 18-year-old Stacy McCall and her friend 19-year-old Susie Streeter were celebrating the recent graduation from high school. They decided to spend the night at Susie's house. The following morning, Susie's mother, 47-year-old Cheryl Levitt, would join them. The trio planned to watch the sunrise and discuss future plans over some coffee. But that morning, the sun rose on an empty house. The three women were nowhere to be found, yet there was no sign of forced entry and nothing was disturbed inside the house. As we already mentioned, the girls had just graduated from high school, so it wasn't unusual for them to stay up late. And Cheryl had done the same thing many times before. The mother had even called her husband at around 11 p.m. the evening before, when she was tucking her daughter into bed and hanging up only to find the call back feature filled with messages from a man who claimed to be calling from the local Pizza Hut, where Cheryl had ordered a pizza earlier that night. She had not placed such an order. This fact alone unnerved her, and she discussed the strange calls with her daughter. However, they dismissed it as a prank and went about their nightly routines. So when the alarm system failed to activate at around 3 a.m., no one thought much of it. When Steve Levitt woke up at around 6 a.m. and discovered his wife and daughter were missing, he assumed they had gone out for breakfast. He attempted to call their home, but the line was busy. Thinking perhaps the girls were trying to call him, he drove to the house only to discover the line was dead. The power was also off, which was most unusual for the family. After attempting to call his wife's cellular phone without success, he contacted the police and reported the women missing. When police arrived at the home, the first thing that struck them was how neat and tidy everything was. There were no signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no sign of forced entry. It almost appeared as if the family had simply left the home and forgotten to turn off the lights. All three bedrooms were neatly made, with the exception of Susie's room, where a single pillowcase lay discarded on the floor. Every member of the family had left behind personal belongings. Stacy's purse, coat, and car keys, Cheryl's glasses and car keys, and Susie's clothing and cassette tapes were all found in their respective places. Phones, wallets, cigarettes, and other items were also left behind. This lack of struggle puzzled the police, leading them to believe the family may have willingly left with someone they knew. Then there was the broken light bulb in front of the door. It was the only thing that seemed out of place. Yet the police couldn't understand why someone would want to obscure the only means of entering the home. Adding to the mystery was the fact that the family's pet dog was still inside the house and the front door was unlocked. This further led the police to believe that the women had not been the victims of a violent crime. Someone had obviously wanted them to leave the house willingly, but who and why? Unfortunately, the investigation was hampered by the fact that family and friends accidentally disturbed the crime scene before the police arrives. Following the disappearance, they began searching for the missing persons, combing through the area, and even talking to individuals the women had recently had contact with. During this time, one of Susie's friends received a strange voicemail message from her, but when she returned the call, the number was disconnected and the message was deleted. Even though police requested phone records from the local phone company, they weren't able to recover the phone number. This detail alone would come to define the entire case. While the initial investigation yielded no results, authorities did receive several tips regarding the missing women over the years. Unfortunately, none of these tips ever panned out. One of the biggest obstacles facing investigators was the lack of cooperation from those close to the women. Both Stacy and Susie had a history of petty theft and running away from home, so their families didn't report them missing until 24 hours after they were last seen. Cheryl, however, was extremely well liked within the community and was known to help anyone in need. If she had somehow become entangled with the wrong crowd, the other party may have good reason to keep her disappearance quiet. There were also a number of suspicious details surrounding the events leading up to the disappearances. Several people reported seeing the women on the evening of June 6th, but no one was ever sure if their sighting was accurate. And others, who claimed to have seen the women on the morning of June 7th, were also unsure if their sighting was real. It was even reported that Cheryl's husband had previously caught a man lurking around the property. While this may seem like a solid lead, no one ever came forward to identify the man. Over the years, several theories emerged, but none could be substantiated with evidence. The first theory posited that the three had been the victims of a purposeful abduction. This theory alleged that a single individual had followed the women to their home and waited until they were asleep before abducting them. This person would then have used some sort of chloroform or sleeping draught to render them unconscious and carried them away. While this theory explained why the women left their home willingly, it failed to explain why the killer had left the door unlocked and the phone off the hook. If he intended to harm the women, this would have been a rather careless move. The second theory suggested that the women had been murdered, dismembered, and hidden somewhere in the area. Perhaps the killer even dissolved their bodies in acid. Why else would they have left all their belongings behind? This theory also raises the question, however, why anyone would bother dismembering the women in the first place. Maybe the killer was overly cautious, attempting to cover all traces of the crime. But if so, why not destroy the women's possessions while he was at it? The third theory posits that the women were targeted by an acquaintance. This theory suggests that someone the women trusted lured them outside of their home before abducting them. Whoever it was must have been someone familiar with the family, someone who knew their habits and schedules. It doesn't sound far-fetched, but who would know about Cheryl S. late-night pizza order and where she kept her spare set of keys? That's right, the killer or killers may have been hiding in plain sight all along. But the strangeness doesn't end there. Some believe the Springfield case was related to another murder in Missouri. In 1991, a woman named, if you're enjoying this video, stay tuned for more true mystery news. Theory No. 5 alleges that the women became victims of treasure hunters. Over the years, rumors circulated that the women's bodies had been discovered by people searching for buried treasure on private property. These treasure hunters, so the story goes, quickly buried the evidence and concocted a scheme to hide the bodies. However, there were no reports of arrests or investigations following the discovery of the bodies. And even if the women had been found, wouldn't the treasure hunters have been arrested? The theory that the women's bodies are buried on private land has been helped by a pair of psychics who claim to know the exact location where the women are buried, but who haven't been able to provide any concrete evidence to support their claims. More than 30 years later, the case remains unsolved. The FBI, local police, and national media are all involved, but so far no answers have been found. By 2022, the case will be 30 years old, still one of America's most mysterious disappearances. The family is still waiting for justice to be served. Now it's time for your opinion. What do you think really happened to the Springfield Three? A perfect kidnapping, a well-planned conspiracy, something else entirely? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other true mystery news. Thanks for watching. See you next time.